Hi everybody, it's Jenny from the Missouri Star Quilt Company, and I am super excited that we finally get to do our block of the month. This is our block of the month right here that we're doing. It's called 'Tis the Season. At the end of the block of the month months, you're going to get a Christmas quilt that's ready to go. You can get this in two ways. So you can get it in traditional and you can get it in contemporary. So this quilt is 83 by 91, has a nice big 6-inch border. Let's get started. So I'm here with my daughter Natalie, and together we are going to sew along with you for 7 months and make this quilt. You get to choose between two styles. We have traditional and we have contemporary.
So cute.
Natalie's going to sew the contemporary and I'm going to work on the traditional, so let's see what's inside here. This is the box you'll receive for the first month, and here right on top is a little booklet, and it's all about getting started. This is your getting started guide, and we are going to sew along with you for 7 months. Inside you'll find a fabric key that lists all the fabrics you have and what to use them for. You'll get a block overview of all the blocks we're going to make each month, and this quilt is put together differently than anything we've done in a while. So it's going to be sewn together in rows. So the first block we'll make will be this star right here, but you're going to make all the stars for this block, but then we are going to put the first row together. Month 2, we're going to make this star, but then we'll take 2 of the star blocks we've already made and put this row together. And so we're going to sew it together row by row each month, and so that by the time you get to your 6th month, you'll just have that last row to do. The 7th month is borders and backing, and each quilt has a different backing.
Oh, yeah, these
so
are
let's
very
show
cool.
that. Now the backing does not come with the kit. You have to purchase it separately, but this is the traditional backing. Shall we take it out of the bag, Natalie?
Sure, if you want.
All right, let's take it out and show them. So this is the traditional backing, and mine is red snowflakes.
Very cute.
It's so cute. And you will buy this separately. This does not come with the kit. But look at the contemporary backing. I love this one with the trees.
They're the bottle brush trees.
The bottle brush trees. I actually did a whole...
The glow line.
So cute. Isn't that darling? Anyway, you'll buy those backings separately, so that's one of the things that you want to keep in mind when you're starting your quilt, is to be sure and get those ahead of time.
Of course, you could back your quilt with
anything, and you need 3 yards, 3 yards of a 108 to back with, so
or
just
5 3/4 if it's 45-inch wide fabric.
right. So I love it 108 though.
I do too.
Just
Seamless,
one
great,
big back. Yeah, it just makes it a lot of fun. Yeah. So for planning ahead things, that's what you'll want to do. You'll want to make sure you have your backing in place, and then quilting. Let's talk about the quilting.
Okay.
Because we have a super special thing for you guys. We actually had someone design a quilt pattern just for this block of the month. It's amazing, and I love it. And so I don't think we've done that before, where we've had a quilting design.
And it was Ann Bright, right?
It was Ann Bright who designed it for us, and it's just absolutely darling.
Beautiful quilting patterns.
Really, really a good job. And for the binding, it is included in this kit as well. And so you will get your binding in the, what month?
The last shipment.
The last shipment. So you'll probably get borders and binding in there. And anyway, we hope you enjoy sewing along with us. So let's get ready for month 1. All right, Natalie, this is the big opening. Are you ready?
I'm excited.
All right,
Month 1.
Let's see what we got. All right, we have our getting started guide, which you'll want to keep close by you. Oh, we already have a surprise and delight. Our holiday surprise and delight. So what does yours look
cute.
like?
So it's a pattern keeper.
It is a pattern keeper, and I love the pattern keepers. If you don't know what a pattern keeper is, when you do a block of the month, you're going to get a pattern every single month. And this one, you're able to put your pattern in it and keep them all together for the whole single year.
The whole single year.
The whole year. And so it's really cool because it keeps it all in one place. Otherwise, if you're like me, I'm putting stuff everywhere, all over the place, and I'll go to look for month 4 and be like, where was that?
And you'll want to make sure too that you keep your month 1, the getting started guide, because it has this really cool fabric key.
Yes, so we are big fans of a fabric chart, and you know, because it'll say,
So easy to forget which one's G
oh
and
my
which
gosh,
one's A.
yeah. And so, you know, you'll pick all these fabrics, but you have to remember which fabric is fabric A, and this tells it for you. It also tells you what the front, the right and wrong side look like, and if it has an X there.
That is for diagrams only. So
Okay.
as you're reading along in your pattern, you'll be able to tell. So like right here where it has 2A and 2B, this is the back side of the fabric that's showing, and then this is the right
okay,
side.
that makes sense.
So when you're looking at your diagrams, that's when that line matters, but the rest of is the fabric, and that's probably what you'll use more.
I'm so glad I have her around. Makes makes sense to me. All right, here is month 1. And month 1, we have these squares for my traditional. I have yellow squares, and because we're making the stars.
Yep.
This
and
is
you're ready
the
to get
star we're
started
making.
Cutting.
Get started.
I
Yeah.
love it.
But then we have this big piece of background fabric, and the background fabric, this is for the next 3 months.
That's cool.
It is
Because then
cool.
you're kind of ready, you're prepared, you can get a bunch of cutting done.
You got all your cutting done. Yep,
and
you're
then
ready to
when
go.
month 2 arrives, you're just like one less step.
All right, so let's get our squares out, and we'll cut those
Okay.
first, because that's pretty easy cutting right there. And I'm going to set this over here.
I'm going to keep
All
my
right.
fabric key open so I can see that.
So this is the joy of every daughter's life, is to tell their mother what to do. So Natalie's going to tell me what to do.
All right, so you're going to pick up 4 of your fabric G 10-inch squares.
Okay.
And my fabric G is this printed
I'm not
one.
sure which one my fabric G is, but I only have 2 fabrics here, so I
It's
figure
one or
it'll-
the other, but look
it'll
at
one
your
or the other.
chart. G
Oh,
is
yeah,
going to
G
be
is
the
this one.
lighter,
Okay.
the lighter one, it looks like.
Yep, I got that.
Okay.
And 4 of my,
1, 2, 3, 4.
okay, I got 4 and 4.
All right. Then we're going to cut them into 2.5-inch strips across the width.
Okay, so,
And it looks like, if I'm measuring correctly, looks like maybe they're a little bit bigger than 10 inches, so I think we can cut the peaks right off.
yeah, I like to cut the peaks off when I'm
Do
doing
you cut them
things.
off of the very beginning, or
No,
do you
so what I
just
do-
start on that one?
So what I do is I lay my squares to make sure it goes over the 10-inch lines on both sides. And because I'm left-handed, I'm going to start on the right-hand side, and I'm going to cut this, and then I'll take this piece and flip it around and cut all the little peaks off, because then I know that I actually have that room.
Okay.
And then I'm just going to come in here and I can cut my next one. So these,
Right-handed, so I'm going to go from the opposite side.
yep. And so we're going to cut all 4 of these into 2.5-inch strips, correct?
Yep, and then you're going to subcut them.
Wait, not yet, because I can't remember that far ahead.
You can.
All right, I'm going to leave those there, and then these, oh, are we subcutting already?
We're subcutting these into
Okay.
5-inch, 2.5 by 5-inch rectangles.
Okay. Now, Natalie's stacking hers up. I'm going to lay mine out like this. So mine are only 4 thick. Natalie's feeling very confident with her layers of 8.
Got a strong shoulder.
A strong shoulder. My shoulder isn't so strong, but I'm going to line these up, and I'm going to cut them. And she'll be done by the time I get ready, pretty sure. Oh, so these are cut in 5. Oh, shoot.
2.5 by 5.
Okay.
Well, here,
so
you can use this one.
let me
And
just
go straight across.
There we go. And I'm going to leave actually a little bit of room for that, the peaks again. And I'm just going to cut this 5. These rulers are so handy for pre-cuts because it's just 5 wide. So I got those.
Awesome.
And then I got
So
this
I'm
right
just going to
here.
set these aside.
And I'm going to just trim off these little peaks. There we go. And now I'll just pick these up, and we'll do the same thing to the other set of 4.
Same thing with the other set of 4.
All right. Hey, you can't have my
Sorry,
rotary
sorry.
cutter. And you have my ruler. I can get you a skinny ruler like this. I know who makes them, you know.
That's okay. I like this one.
Do you?
And you're going to want it in a minute anyway.
I will want it in a minute.
Oops.
I feel like we're like competing here.
It's a competition. Only, you know, it's not.
It's not. At the end of it, we're both going to get an amazing quilt no matter how fast we did it. So we've been trying to get this block of the month out for like 2 years now, but because of COVID,
Yeah,
we couldn't get all the supplies.
Supply issues.
So I'm super excited that it's finally here and ready to go.
We got it all straightened out.
Yep, I'm going to wait for your, actually, I probably have a ruler here. There we go.
All right.
And she's moving on.
Oh, I'll wait for you to catch up. It's fine.
You're so naughty. All right, let me see here.
Do you have a little extra there? Or no?
Just a little bit on one side. I think I was a little further over on this other side, so let me see here.
Well, these are kind of wonky, so it really doesn't matter if they're exactly this size. I think if you have a little scooch one way or the other, it's no big deal.
It's no big deal because these are not going to be set in pieces.
We're just eyeballing these star legs.
Yeah, the stars that we're making are just going to be, they're kind of wonky.
It's the nice thing about the rising star. They just kind of...
This is your
how they
dad's
go.
pattern, you know, the
I
rising
know.
star.
It's very cool.
Mr. Ron made this one. All right, so then on this one right
the
here.
The next step is one fabric G and one fabric H, and we're just going to cut 2.5-inch strips. Okay.
All right, so I'm just going to cut this in half,
Okay.
and then I'm going to cut them in half again, so 5.
2.5
by 5, and we're going to do that too.
And we do this because we need a total of 36 of these 2.5 by 5 rectangles for our stars.
Oh, and then these are 2 different ones, so we have to divide those up.
Oh, well, I mean, if you want to.
There we go. And here we go. All right, so now we have our star fabric ready to go, and we're on to our background.
Yep. Now,
All right.
background is a little bit more intense because we're going to be cutting for 3 months.
Okay. I just had to go get the trash. Didn't want to throw it on the floor. All right, so I will cut if you'll tell me what to cut.
All right.
I'm going to scoot these things out
My
here.
fabric looks like it's folded really nicely. It's got 2 selvage edges together and a fold.
Very nice.
So we can
if
fold it
if yours
again.
isn't, then you do want to fold it.
Yeah, make sure and straighten it up if it needs straightening.
Iron it if it
And
needs ironing.
I think maybe the traditional, did yours come folded differently than mine?
Mine came folded
Where's your
long
box?
ways.
Where's your box?
It's right here. My box is right there. So I am,
Yep, so if you have a traditional box, it's going to come not folded selvage to selvage, and you're going to want to fold it this way before you start cutting.
that's right.
So put your selvage edges together, give it a good shake down.
And the reason for that is that all the measurements are based on that 45 or 40 wide
yes.
wide
so
fabric.
we're going to be cutting these into widths. So if you're in the contemporary box, your fabric comes pre-folded, selvage to selvage. In the traditional, you'll have to fold it before you start cutting.
All right.
And it just comes that way from the manufacturer.
I'm going to straighten up this selvage. So what I've done on this is ours is folded at the fold, and I've folded it again. I do not love to cut full width pieces of fabrics. It just, it's a little.
It's long.
It's just easier for me to get off on that.
To
make a
crooked
mistake.
cuts.
And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to line this up. I'm going to make sure it lines up on this line of my mat, on this line of my mat, and I'm going to trim this edge to make sure that it is nice and straight. Oh. There we go. All right, so what's my first cut on
Okay,
this?
so your first cut is 4 8.5-inch strips.
Okay, so I'm going 5, 6, 7, 8 and a half. And I'm going to make sure this is still lined up. Still lined up. All right, here's one. So this
I'll
is,
just hold on to it and you can keep cutting.
okay.
So we'll need all 4 of these, and
5,
we're
6,
probably,
7,
we're going to be
8 and
cutting
a
each
half.
one at a time for
2,
different
3,
things
4,
for
5,
each month.
6, 7, 8 and a half. Sorry, I had to count out loud right there. I talked right over you.
It's totally fine. It's important to get your counts right
1,
because,
2,
you know,
and then we've got
measure twice, cut once. Isn't
Oh.
that the saying?
2, 3 and a half. 5 plus 8 and a half. There we go.
One more.
How many of these? 4?
Just one more.
Okay.
We need 4
Right, let me
total.
Make sure these are still, we're still on here. Good to make sure that you're still,
Nice and straight.
yeah, I think I'm okay.
Yeah.
There we go. So 5, 6, 7, 8 and a half. That's ruler counting right there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, there's these.
All right, so let's set this aside just for
Okay.
a minute. I'm not, you know.
Put that up here.
All right, so since this is already 8 and a half, we're going to cut 22 and a half rectangle, and these are the big white blocks that go in between the stars on row 1.
Oh, okay, so 22. Mm-hmm. So if I
22 and a half.
Okay, so I'm going to start at, it'd be easier if I do it this way, won't it?
Sure.
Start at 1
Yep.
and go to 22 and a half right here.
Yep, and I'm gonna get a little
Here's
Post-it
this.
note.
I was
We're gonna
ready-
want to label these
I
as
was ready
we.
for you.
Awesome. We're gonna want to label these as we cut. This one is gonna be labeled rectangle C,
And
and it's for row 1. So I'm gonna write both of those things down, and also the measurement.
the reason
just
we're
so that I
labeling
can
this
make
is
sure.
because
we're
you may
cutting-
remember it right now, but you're not going to remember it 2 months from now.
It's super easy to forget, but yeah, we're gonna make labels and set them aside.
That's this one right here.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Then
All right,
what's the
so our
cut?
next cut is 8 and a half by 14 and a half,
Okay, so I've got 8 and a half, and
and
we've
that's
got
rectangle B, also for row
14 and
1.
a half.
8 and a half by 14 and a half.
Okay. There's that. And this background is different too for each quilt.
Yes.
Mine is kind of swirlies. Yours
We have
looks like
B
snow.
and C.
So is this like a little extra, or are we cutting something out of that?
We're gonna hold on to this for now
Okay.
and grab a new strip. We're gonna
Okay.
cut an 8 and a half by 20 and a half.
Just one? Mm-hmm. All right.
So open it up. Don't cut on the fold for this one.
Nope, I'm going to cut the
Same with
selvage,
the last one too.
my little edge off here.
Trim it as
You
close
don't
as
want
you can.
this. You don't want this selvage to be part of your quilt. So now we have by 20 and a half, right?
Uh-huh. And that's
20
going
and a
to be
half.
A, rectangle A for row 1.
There we go.
And it is 8 and a half by 20 and a half.
Yeah, it's important to put
put a
both the
little-
row and the and the
I
size.
like it just so
Yeah.
that I don't have to remeasure everything and just make sure. I'm always a double checker. And
Yeah, perfect.
So, okay. So now we're going to cut an 8 and a half by 18 and a half.
Okay, 17, 18 and a half right here. Make sure
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the line. A little bit over. Let's see, make sure.
And that is rectangle F. And this one is for row 2. So all of our row 1s can be in a stack, and then we'll start a row 2 pile.
So do you love that I put this together so you can complete a whole row?
I do. It's very cool.
I think it's very cool too.
Totally.
All right, so we'll put this over
All
here.
right. Label.
All right, now what? We got another 8 and a half probably.
Yep. So we're going to cut an 8 and a half by 4 and a half inch rectangle
Oh wait,
for D.
I bet one of these will work.
Totally. Yeah. You can cut from your other strips.
Right here, 8 and a half by 4 and a half.
Yep. And be as conservative as you want to be. So 8 and a half by 4 and a half.
There we go.
And we're going to call that rectangle D.
Okay. And that goes in row 2?
Um,
Let's make
yeah.
sure. Okay. G for row 2, what is it?
E, D, E, and G are for row 2.
Okay. There we go.
Okay. 8 and a half by 20 and a half, so you'll need a new strip to do this one.
Okay.
And that is E,
Oh, here's a little piece.
8.5 by 20.5 for row 2.
There we go. This goes in the, oh,
I got it.
8.5 by 20.5. So
Uh-huh.
we've got over here at the 1 by 20.5.
Yep, and these are all going to be a little bit different because in each row we have different numbers of stars.
Okay, ready for your sticky.
All right, row 2, so that goes there. And then 8.5 by 6.5, and that's rectangle G.
6.5. Right here.
For row 2.
All right.
Then we need an 8.5 by 8 inch.
8.5 by 8.
Mm-hmm.
They're so tricky.
That one's going to be a little bit tricky. We might want to make sure we mark it one, top or bottom,
8.5 by 8.
because it's only different by a 1/2 inch. So when you go to sew that, you'll be able to tell.
Well, you'll tell if you sew it on and it's sticking
And
over the
it's-
edge.
and it's not the
You'll
right
be
size,
like, oops,
yeah.
got that wrong.
So that one is labeled
Row 2.
I.
And G.
Rectangle,
Oh, rectangle
I for
I.
row 3. We already did G.
Okay.
Cool.
Now we're on to row 3. Very nice.
Okay. Now we're going to label and store our D, E, and G for month 2. So
Okay.
all of this,
Put it in a
the
baggie.
row 2
Get a
gets
baggie and put
set
it in a
aside.
baggie. Set it aside.
And then this one is going to set aside for month 3.
Okay.
But we have a few more things to cut, so we're going to get another strip and cut an 8.5 by 12.5 inch rectangle. Here's one
Oh,
more.
I thought we were out of those.
Nope. We're almost done. We're getting close, though.
All right.
We only have like 3-4 more paragraphs of cutting.
Hang in,
But
guys.
the good news is this will all be done for months
will all
1,
be
2, and
done.
3, and then we can just sew.
Yeah, I do love that.
It's going to be great.
All right, so this is 8.5 by what?
8.5 by 12.5. It's rectangle
8.5 by
H.
12.5. It's like by what?
Yeah.
Let's see, 8.5 by 12.5. There we go. Row H, and this is
for row 3.
row 3. Yeah, we
And
still have
then
a
we
big,
have an 8.5 by 8 for
another 8.5 by 8.
Yep, for row 3.
All right.
And this is rectangle J for Jenny.
J for Jenny.
8.5 by 8. This is another one of those fun one that's only different by a 1/2 inch.
Right.
8.5 by 12.5, rectangle K.
RK. There we go.
Also for row 3.
Okay, here we go.
8.5 by 1.5.
Ooh.
It's a tiny one.
Yep. Just one of those?
Also for row 3. It looks like it. Just one.
Good luck fitting your little sticky on there. There you go.
Make it stick.
Oh, you didn't put the row.
Oh,
3.
I just wrote row.
Row 3.
3.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. So now we are going to cut 5 4.5 inch strips off of the width of our fabric. So we're back to the big piece.
Okay. 5 4.5.
And these are all going to be subcut into 4.5 inch squares.
Oh, okay.
So,
So 4.5.
it's getting a little easier now.
1 and 4.5. 2
Want me to start subcutting?
and sure.
Would that be cool? Okay.
Always good to sew with a buddy.
Yeah. Because we got some
3,
4.5 inch squares to cut here.
4. Whoop! I got that by the nick of time. And here's my 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4.5. All right. Put this over here.
So all 5 strips get cut down, subcut, into 4.5 inch squares. And these are all the backgrounds of your little rising stars.
And I'm opening mine up so that I can,
I did the same thing. I lined up my selvage edges and my
Yeah.
folds so that you can cut through layers and not have, not end up cutting a fold when you didn't want to cut a fold. So I'm going to go ahead and open these up now that I've got down to the end, because I can get a couple more out of here.
How many do we need? Do you
We
know?
need a total of 36, but if I'm cutting along a strip, I will
Just cut as
get
many
what
as
I
you can.
need, because I'd rather have a couple extra.
Yeah, because I have. My problem with that is
And
that
then I set these aside.
I make whatever I have.
All right, you might have too many then.
Yeah.
All right, so these,
Wait, I'm going to cut these too.
we could
It's
label
all right.
them if we wanted to, but we don't have to, because these are going to be used for this month's sewing for row 1.
Okay,
So we can just stick them with our row 1 pile, I think.
perfect. There's those.
Awesome. So these go with row 1.
A little bit of extra pieces over here.
All right, so now we need 2 2.5-inch strips across our width of fabric again.
All right.
These get cut into 2.5-inch squares.
Nice.
And you need 32,
All right then.
which works out because you get 16 from each strip, and we have 2 strips, so perfect.
Perfect. All right, so I'm just going to shave this up again, make sure it's still straight.
It's funny how when you cut, row after row, you can kind of just get like a tiny bit off.
That was right-handed cutting for me right there.
Ooh, tricky.
I know, really. Here's 1, and here's 2. And make sure that's exactly on there. And then
All right,
I'm
so we
going
subcut
to,
these into 2.5-inch squares.
and I'm just going to leave them like this.
Yeah, because you are Miss Experience, and you know that you can still get all your cuts even though they're folded in half.
Miss Experience, did
The
you hear
queen.
that? All right, so
Seriously
I'm just gonna,
though, if I wasn't experienced, I would want to make sure that I could get all my cuts and leave it open.
Right.
But we can give you this hack because we know, we know it's going to work.
So I'm just going along, putting my 2.5. This would be a great place to use your little 2.5 ruler.
You
So
want one
here's
right here.
these.
Here, I've got this
Well,
little one.
I'm actually going to open these up because of the fold as I laid these out.
And you don't
I
want 'em to be
noticed that it slid
crooked.
over. Yeah. So I'm
Okay.
just going to lay this on here, and I'm going to do 1 and 2.
Yeah, you just have a tiny bit left.
Yep.
All right, so all of these 2.5-inch squares go with month 2.
Month.
So put them on row 2. Row
Row
2
two.
and month 2 are the same thing.
Okay. And if you don't know that those are 2.5, label those as well.
Right.
All right. Now what?
Okay, so now we're going to cut 6 1.5-inch strips with the fabric,
Okay.
and this is for our sashing.
All right. I'm going to see if I can speed this up a little bit. I'm going to fold this in half. So now I'm cutting 4 layers because I'm down to a smaller piece.
Wow.
And which I'm just
Feeling
going to,
very brave now, aren't you?
I'm feeling real brave. I'm going to trim off this edge right here.
Okay.
And then I'm going to cut 1.5, right?
Yes, and we need 6 of these.
And then before we go on, let's open these up and make sure they are indeed straight.
There's
If your
no bowing
strip
in the middle.
elbows, if it elbows at all, then
Looks
you know
pretty
it's
good.
not exactly straight.
Yep, it looks good to me.
All right, so then we can do this. That's 2. Here's 4, and here's 6. Do we
Now-
subcut these at all?
We do not subcut these. These are for the sashing. So you need a 1.5 by 72.5-inch strip that goes across.
So you'll just sew them together?
And I think if we sew these together end to end, you get 80.
Sure.
And technically in the directions, if you want to be exacting, you can sew all of your strips together end to end, form a huge long sashing strip, and then cut them into 72.5-inch sections. But I think that we can just put 2 strips with each row.
Okay.
And then,
That makes sense.
and
the
then we can
sashing,
just sew 2 together and measure it to 72.5.
the sashing is this row right here in between row 1 and then
Yeah.
row 2
So
and then row 3.
for
like
me
this.
as a hack, I would just do 2 strips at a time.
Absolutely.
And measure that to 72 inches rather than having to deal with the whole full length of all of them. So
All right.
we'll just put 2 1.5-inch strips with each row. So row 1 gets 1, row 2 gets 2. I mean, they each get 2. And
They
row
each get
3.
2, 2, and 2.
And that is it. We are ready to start sewing.
And we have this
So
little
we have
piece
a little
left
bit
over.
left over. We have this.
So
This
hold on
left
to
over
your
as
scraps
well.
because if you make a cutting error, like if I had cut one of those and it had been bowed, I would still have room to cut another. So
Yes.
save onto those.
And
I
I would-
put all my scraps in a separate bag from everything else so they don't get mixed up with my pieces.
Yeah, I would keep these as well, just in case I needed an extra bit in my sashing, or if I messed up on a 2.5-inch square. There's just a lot of safety in
All
that.
right. So now
So
it is time
we
to sew our
can-
blocks.
Well, let's put these in baggies
Okay.
first, so
Oh,
that we can set them aside.
She's making me wait. She's making me wait.
Hang on. Well, let's just grab a Ziploc and
right.
pack these away for.
FYI, little, what is that called? A spoiler alert? This may be the last Ziploc bag you need because you're going to get some of those.
Hey, don't give away the secrets of the other months. All right.
I do
so
love the packaging this year. Let me just say, I
this
love
is
the
row
packaging.
3, and I'm just going to stick it in here for now and save that in my box.
That's good.
And this, I'm going to do the same thing for row 2. You could Sharpie marker your Ziploc bag if you wanted to, but.
And this is row 1.
And row 1, I'm not going to bag up
No,
I'm going to
because
sew
we are
in
gonna
just a
sew.
minute.
And I'm going to sew mine too.
Yep.
Now
You-
my
you got
background
your
is already
background
cut.
cut?
Yeah, my background is already cut. We didn't figure you needed to watch us cut up 2 big pieces of background.
That's
so
a lot of cutting.
it's a lot of cutting.
All right, so I'm going to take my
This is all
my
yours.
background and my strips.
So come join us over at the sewing machine. So we are ready to sew our rising stars together, and we are going to make 9 of these. And 4 of these are going to be, we're going to start with the light and finish with the dark, and the other 4 we're going to start with the dark and finish with the light. Really, these colors are so similar that it's not going to really matter, I don't think.
Right.
But,
And in the contemporary kit, it's really just a solid and a print.
oh, okay, so you'll actually be able to see that a little
I'll be
easier.
able to make them different, but it's,
So to do this, we're going to take a 4.5-inch square. And anytime you have this kind of tone-on-tone fabric like this, sometimes it's hard to see which side is front and which side is back. But I've always found that if you lay it on your if you have dark pants on, if you lay it on a dark surface, it's very easy to see which side is front and which side is back. And so I'm going to start with my lighter yellow. And what I'm going to do is what I'm aiming for, there are actually 2 ways these can come out. When I first started doing them, I made sure that this crossed the center like you would for a star leg. Well, that makes kind of chubby stars. But if you want an elongated point, then you're going to come in a little bit. So I'm actually going to come in about 1.5 inches, and I'm going to come down here, maybe 1 inch from the bottom, and I'm just going to sew right along this edge. And so we're going to do that.
Do you think we could do this same thing for like 5 back?
Yes. So that's what I was going to say. I'm going to go ahead and sew, I'm going to sew
Several?
that same
Just
piece.
do maybe 4?
I'm going to do 4 of them because 4 of these will make 1 block.
Okay.
And so I'm going to come along this edge right here. And there's no rhyme, no reason to this. So don't worry about getting it right or measuring wrong or anything like that because there really isn't any rhyme, no reason. And so we're just going to take another one, come along here, and sew over and do 1 more. And I'm going to do 4 at a time. And you can have a shorter leg or a longer leg, whichever you'd like. And once you get your 4 done,
I thought I was done. I have 1 more, sorry.
you're okay. It's not a race. We all sew like we sew. It's our own journey. So anyway, once you get your 4 done, what we're going to do is we're going to press these back. So I'm just going to iron them back like this. Grab my other ones and press them back. Press this back like that and press this one back. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to trim these back up to the square. So I'm going to take my little pieces here, and I'm going to use my square as my pattern, and I'm going to trim this off, and I'm going to trim this off like this. And this is just waste for this pattern. I'll probably put it in my crumb sewing so that I can, keep making fabulous little bits of fabric by sewing these tiny bits together. And Natalie, did you start with your solid or your
I started
print?
with my print for this one.
Nice. Yeah, so the next 4, we'll switch these around. It's supposed to give them that certain sparkle.
They're cute.
All
Cute
right,
little
so-
stars.
Okay, so then once you get all your little pieces, they should look like this. They're all trimmed up, and they should look just like this. And then what we're going to do is, and this didn't iron back really nice and crisp. You kind of want those to be pretty crisp. It's still good. So then what we're going to do is, our leg is always going to come off the fat side of this leg. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our other piece right here, and right up here where the fattest part of this color comes across, we're going to lay our leather leg the other way like this. So it's going to cross over this fat part right here. And so you're going to do that to all 4 of these.
So are you starting to sew now from the little point at the bottom?
I am sewing from the bottom up,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
And so then you're
Just
going to
wanted
use
to make
your darker yellow fabric as well. And I always look at that fat point and come down the other side like this. And I do sew from the bottom up. You always want to make sure that you leave at least 1/4 inch, otherwise you'll lose your point in that seam. And so, again, cross over that fat part. That is something I have to actually, I should say the wider part.
The center of the star.
The center of the star. There we go, perfect. Like this. And then what we're going to do is take these apart and press them back.
And I'm going to catch up eventually.
Oh, you're fine. That's a nice thing about doing one of these. You have a whole month to finish this block. Actually, that's a little hard for me sometimes to do when I do a block of the month.
Waiting for the next one?
Waiting for the next part, yeah.
Not very patient.
A block of the week seems too fast. A block of the month seems too long. And so I just trimmed this off. But what you want to do when you iron them back is you want to make sure when you look that it covers 2 sides. So you're covering the top and one side of it. And it will be the same for all 4 of your sides. And I'm going to just trim this off like this. And again, using your square as the pattern. And this is one of those blocks where when you start to put them together, I'm not trimming off the back fabric. And a lot of people think, oh my gosh, that's a lot of layers of fabric. But I want you to know that that quilting machine can go through fingers and metal rulers, so it can go through a lot of layers of fabric. So I don't worry about the fact that there's like a bunch of layers.
If you are hand quilting though and you want to cut it
That's
away,
true.
you totally can.
Yeah, if you're hand quilting, then you definitely want to make
Just
sure
trim the backing fabric off of the first star
yeah,
leg.
like you could
before
fold this over and trim this back very easily and do it.
Yeah, and do that before you put the second leg on.
Right. All right,
So-
so I'm actually ready to put my star together. It goes together like a 4-patch, and it's going to come together like this, and this, and this. Just like that. It's going to make that little star. And so we're going to go ahead and lay these right sides together. And sew this, so. And it takes 4 of these blocks to make 1 star. And we're just going to do that 9 more times. All right. Now you'll see, the way I sew these together, they have that connecting thread in between, and I use that almost like a pin. And so it just lies there like that. I'm not pressing it yet because I want to make my seams go the direction that I want them to go. And I'm definitely going to make sure that one seam goes this way and one seam goes this way so that all the bulk doesn't end up on one side. So we're just going to lay that over. Hold that down. And there's our first star right here. And we're going to press that out. And I'm going to use some spray because it is a lot of bulk there in the middle. And if you want to go ahead and open up that seam, you can. I'm not going to worry about it too much. I'm just going to press it down. If I use a little bit of spray starch, it presses down nice and flat. And that's what I'm looking for, is a flat block. And look at this cute little star. Isn't that cute? Oh, let me press these seams so they go the same way. There we go. And then this one is going to go this way. You know, I have to tell you, nobody's ever looked in the back of my quilt, so I don't worry too much over the pressing, but, you know, just so you guys can see that every once in a while it matters. All right. I have a little stack of them going here. Let me see how many I have. I made some earlier. Oh, and so this is a good example of, this is when you pull your star leg in a little further across the middle. It's going to make more of a chunky star. And this is going to make more of a kind of an elongated star. And so it's just whatever style you want. Oh, yours is really elongated. That's really pretty. Let me show that to, see this one? Look how good she did. Very good.
So I've got to make at least one more to put my first row together.
Yes. And you're going to want to be careful about pulling it so far because you're going to lose that point down there if that bothers you.
Okay.
So just make sure you leave a little seam allowance.
All right.
All right, so let's make one more. And we'll start with the other color this time.
I can't even remember now which one I started with.
You started with your print. I remember you told me.
I'm going to start solid.
All right, so I've got my 4 pieces over here. And we're going to start and sew down here. I'm going to try to make mine a little longer like Natalie's. I like that long look. Just make sure that you quit just before the, with enough room at the bottom for your seam allowance.
Bring it off the side?
Yeah, just bring it off the side.
Okay.
I do like that skinny star, though. All right, so once you're going to want to go ahead and make all 9 of yours, but for row 1, we're going to make 2.
And you have a whole month to make all 9.
We do, and of course, obviously, you can see how fast they are. I thought about just having Natalie cut and trim mine. She wants to make her own.
Yeah.
It is so fast, though.
It's such a cute
You know,
quilt.
we learned that from, you know, Triple Play. It's so fun to have somebody else do your cutting and your ironing and all that. It's pretty fun. All right, there's one. And if you do decide to trim away your back fabric, don't do it until you have cut your shape, because otherwise you'll lose your pattern. The square on the back is meant to be your pattern. When my husband did this quilt, he did it with layer cake squares, and then we did one with tiny ones too. Oh, we did one with pieces in all corners or something. I don't remember. There's several different patterns we've made using this.
It's a fun technique.
It is a fun technique. All right, now I'm going to come across the wider part, but not go in very far. And does it have to be exactly 1/4 inch? No, it does not. Not on this part anyway. This part, the 1/4 inch isn't going to matter on this part at all. You just have to get that piece to hold on there. So how far do you think you're going over? Like about 1.5 inches?
Yeah, probably maybe an inch or less.
Ooh. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have some fat sides and some small sides.
That's the fun thing about these, because then they all look unique and sparkly.
Well, every star is different, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and ours are going to be as well. I don't actually know that every star is different. I've never been to a star, but I'm assuming. I'm just
They're totally unique.
totally hopeful. I'm sure there are people who know. All right, let's see. Trim that off. And one more here. All right, and I'm going to put these 4 together. Ooh, look at those skinny legs. And you just put them so all those pieces go toward the center, like that. And I'm going to sew these together in a 4-patch. Open them up. Make sure my seams are going opposite directions. Put a little spray on here. To make this one go this way, these go this way, this goes this way. This is fun. Mine still isn't as long-legged as yours. I pulled mine in too far, but I got 9 times to get one just nice and long.
We just
all right, let's see, what do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I need 2 more for this month's work. But I think right now, as soon as Natalie gets finished, we're going to make row 1. I love the idea that we're putting this together all in rows. I just think that, you know, a lot of times with block of the months, you make all these blocks, and then at the end you have all this stuff to figure out. And this way you're going to be like, row 1 is done. And the next row, you're going to put it together, and row 2 will be done. And by the time you get to row 6, all the blocks you'll have already made and will be safely stored for that month, and you'll just be ready to put it together. I just think this is a super easy way to do it, and I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I enjoyed making it. So don't forget to save all your stars, and you're going to make 9 of those. Okay, so we are on page 5 in our directions here. And it is time to put our first row together because we have made our star blocks. And so we're going to take rectangle A right here, and we've labeled it row 1, rectangle A. You know, I might just leave this little sticker on here
keep it pinned on
so that I know that it's row
so
A.
you can remember.
And then we sew a star block to that. So I'm going to take one of my star blocks and sew it on here like this.
So it goes on like the right side.
It goes
right?
on the right-hand side.
Okay.
We're going to sew 1/4 inch down. And then we're going to open that up. And then we're going to put rectangle B. And rectangle B it's an 8.5 by 14.5. This is rectangle B right here. And I am going to make sure that your tone on tone is going the right direction too. So that's going to go over here, right sides together. And then we're up to another star block. piece of that off of there. We're going to sew a little star block on that one. And then we have rectangle C. How are you doing, Natalie?
Putting on the star block.
Okay. Yeah. Here's rectangle C, and that's 8.5 by 22 inches. That's what C is.
Okay.
And since we have ours marked, we don't have to remeasure it. Now, seriously, I would have been the one going, which piece is this? Measuring. I would have wasted so much time in that. But because we labeled them,
So easy.
it's so easy. We just pick it up and go. And I'm actually going to put this one on. There's a little tiny bit of selvage on this edge, so I'm going to leave that to the outside. And I'm going to put that on here like this.
It'll probably get caught in your seam allowance.
It probably will get caught in the seam allowance. I just don't want to chance it.
Yeah, I understand.
All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press this. This is row 1, you guys. Row 1.
Woohoo!
I'm going to press out my seams.
So exciting that it's like that much is done already.
Right? Yeah, I just love how it's just going to grow. It's going to get nice and big so fast, and we're going to feel so accomplished, and we won't feel overwhelmed at the end when all the blocks are done and we have to do all the things. You know, we just won't feel.
No, because we could attach a row 1 to row 2.
All right, I just have to show you. This is the whole row right here, you guys. Row 1. Ta-da!
One more
Awesome.
press and I'll show you
One
mine.
more press, and now I'll show you hers.
I'm a little bit slower.
Well,
Just
you have a
just a beat behind.
You have a tiny iron.
And my sewing machine doesn't sew as many stitches per inch as yours.
Yeah, mine is.
Just a little bit
My
quicker.
sewing machine is pretty fast.
So here's mine.
Look at that.
Looks good, huh?
It looks perfect.
So excited.
All right. So now we're going to put a sashing underneath it, and our sashing is going to be 1.5 inches by 72 inches. And you are 100% able to sew your 2 pieces together like this. I would cut off your little selvage ends. Where's my little scissors? And like this. And then sew your 1/4 inch. And then you are, you know, please, if your thing is to measure them out. I'm going to sew mine on. I'm just going to attach them. Oh, here's my scissors. I was hunting for my
Found
scissors.
them.
Found them. I'm usually like this. You know, where's my stuff? All right, so make sure you put these on again, going the same direction. And the things I tell you, you know, that when I repeat myself like that, it's because those are mistakes I make regularly. I'll be like, that piece is backwards. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave mine whole. I'm not going to measure it. I'm going to live on the wild side. These 2
Now, your A piece needs to be in the front.
on this way.
It's a little bit shorter than your B piece.
Okay.
Or your C. So the A is 20.5 if you've taken your strips off.
Don't do
Which
it.
I did.
Don't do it.
So by this measurement, it looks like this is A because it is shorter than C.
Okay,
So, and then we put the sashing along the bottom of that row,
on the bottom or the top?
the bottom.
The bottom, okay. All right, so if it goes on the bottom.
So I'm actually going to start with C up at the beginning because that way I'll be stitching on the right side.
Well, I'm going to start with A in the beginning. Oh, it goes on the bottom.
It goes on the bottom, yeah.
Okay.
That's why I flipped
Woo.
the row around so
Yeah.
that I could start from the opposite end.
Okay, that makes sense. Yes, because you always, if you're going to stitch your sashing on without cutting it, put it on the top. If you don't, if the sashing, the feed dogs take in more fabric. So if this sashing is on the bottom, that sashing is going to ruffle. That's what causes a ruffly border. So put your sashing piece at the top and take a few anchoring stitches. Sew that on.
And
take mine out about 6 or 8 inches and kind of hold it there with my fingers.
Yeah, you've taught me to kind of pull the sashing strip snug
Yeah.
as you go, so it's not super loose, but you're not pulling very hard.
Yeah, you're not pulling it tight, but you're just making sure that it's snug on there. Honestly, Natalie, you probably should have been the one who's doing it right, as per the pattern.
Oh, so you're saying I should measure?
I don't know. There's going to be measurers out there, which is good. You got to sew your own way. You got to do it your own way.
Well, why don't we go to the cutting mat and measure after we get our sashing sewn on?
Oh, that's a good
to
idea.
make sure that it's 72.5 inches. Because that all has to do with your row, your seam allowance in the row too. So we could just double check.
And I'm not super worried about that because I sew
All your rows,
consistently.
all your rows will be
And
consistent.
Even
but
if they end up 70 with my seam allowance or 72, they're going to end up about the same.
Right.
All right. So like a wild woman, I'm just going to cut this off. And I'm going to press this open because that's my sashing on the bottom of row A. Look at that. And I'm just going to press this straight down. So my seam is going to be on the sashing side. And then, what's half of 72?
36.
36. Yes, of course it is. All right, let me see how close I am here.
But it's a half. It's 72.5. So it should actually be 37.
I'm 36, exactly. So that should be 72. Oh, I should be 72 and a half. Mm-hmm. Well, as long as all my rows end up the same, I'm good.
You are so good.
Not going to stress
All right,
over that at all.
I am going to measure mine right over here. Although we only go to 60 on this measurer.
Measurer. And my seams could be a little bit different. Let's see.
Mine are typically
You know what?
fatter than
Mine is
yours.
over 1/4 inch, so I probably am 72 and a half.
Yeah, so I'm at 36.5
Uh-huh.
on both. So
Yours is a little longer.
what
So
does
as
that
long
mean?
as your rows end up the same mostly, and we won't find that out till next month's rows, it should be perfect.
Half inch longer, so I'm at 73. Okay. Should I trim it down?
No, do not trim it until the very end.
Okay,
'cause
wait. It's actually, if I lay it out on the mat with my fold, 36.25. Boom.
Perfect.
72.5.
Boom, she's right
Boom.
on. I actually think I'm right on as well.
Okay. So if you're measuring your whole row, then your folded in half should measure 36.25, and that gives you a 72.5 inch length. And I'm going to trim my sashing off with a rotary cutter that I didn't bring over.
Here's one.
Thank you. Perfect. So if you're wanting to trim your sashing strip ahead of time, you can also fold it in half and trim it at 36.25, and then when you open it up, it'll be 72.5.
Perfect.
So
All right, so we have finished row 1, and we'll see you next month for row 2. Natalie, let's show our rows.
Okay.
Here we go.
Mine's-
Rows with sashing.
My sashing's not pressed down yet,
That's
but
right.
you get the idea.
Getting ready for row 2. See you next month, you guys.